Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Cyber PMM Podcast, the only show dedicated to helping cyber PMMs fight digital chaos, cut through the hype, and do more with less. Let's dive in. Hey everyone, let's dive into creating product content. If you remember the old buyer's journey playbook, you mapped content to stages, right? It was very simple: awareness, consideration, decision. Everything was neat and tidy, and everyone knew more or less what you needed to do to fill out content for a specific buyer's journey. You had a funnel in place. You filled it with thought leadership and gated PDFs. You crossed your fingers and hoped that buyers would find you and download. And then those leads would get into a sales funnel and your sales team would follow up and you would be a hero, right? It more or less worked for a long time. But as we see across every other industry, AI is upending those rules. Buyers are changing. Nobody told marketing though, and we're still operating in this in-between phase. And today, buyers aren't reading your white papers as much as they were. They're not watching your webinars. They're not filling out your forms as much. They're prompting ChatGPT, Claude, other LLMs to find the information that they need, and they're doing comparisons at record time instead of sorting through the high volumes of content that product marketers like us put out there. So let's break it down. I'm calling this first part of this video the AI-enabled buyer's flow. And this is going to be important to understand as we jump into how we actually operate in terms of providing content for our buyers today. So the first step in the buyer's flow today is what I call a signal spark. This is when a journey kicks off with a trigger. It could be a tool that's not working anymore, but they're not going to Google to find an answer or go to your website. They're going to their AI tool because it's faster, it's more convenient, and it's in the palm of their hand. So they'll ask something like maybe what tools can reduce alert fatigue in a SOC? I don't know. I've seen that example so many times working in the area I do in security operations. You might have your own. It might be about identity and access or network security, whatever your specific domain is. Just think about those questions that they might ask, and that's what they're going to go to an LLM for. So it's no longer passive browsing and then downloading and filling out forms. It's intent-rich, problem-first, and very fast, super fast. I don't know about any of you, but I don't use Google search much anymore. I think I use it like once a month. I'm using my LLM tools, whether it's ChatGPT or Claude or others, to just get quick responses without ads and without the feeling like I have to go from tab to tab and then keep 500 tabs open in my browser. Instead, I have one LLM interface with all of my conversations and history. So they're using AI to compare options fast. They're not really sifting through your SEO-driven pages as much, and that will continue to decrease. So they're getting condensed summaries, feature matrices, pricing models, and even deployment considerations in seconds. And if your content isn't structured, clear, and machine readable, you're not going to show up as well. So LLMs aren't discovering as much as they are assembling answers from public content, your content, the content that you've worked so hard on. The next step here is called peer echo. Once a buyer sees some options, what do? Any of you ask your friends for their opinions before you go buy something, or other people that you know, to do a quick sanity check. You might go to a Slack group, a Reddit thread, a Discord chat, LinkedIn DMs, wherever it is. You ask, has anybody used this vendor? Has anybody trusted this? This is what star ratings are all about on Amazon and Gartner Peer Insights and other Trust Radius and others, right? I'm missing G2 Crowd. What's the UI like? Is the support any good? Any disaster scenarios? And that's where buyers are gathering some context, validating their opinions. They're seeing what others in their trusted networks are doing. That's just what's happening. And then the demo hunt. How do they find the proof that they need that this tool is going to match their needs? They're not really going to schedule a discovery call and try to get on the phone with your sales team. They want a 2-minute demo. They want to go in, look at a demo play, or do a self-guided demo with Novatic or some other tool. And they want to see the product work for their specific use cases. They want a quick answer just to get past that next phase to make sure that it can integrate with whatever technology they have in their SOC, and that it does support automated alert suppression, or that it does gather telemetry from a specific threat intelligence feed, whatever it is. And if they can't find that info, they're going to move on, right? So then they go into a phase of justification. They've probably picked a favorite by now, but they have to sell it internally. So they're going to ask AI, create a deck, comparing vendor A to B to C for my CISO that I have to deliver in a presentation tomorrow morning, write a justification memo for switching to product XYZ, right? And so those are the types of capabilities buyers now have. And if your public content is weak, vague, outdated, fluffy, using language that doesn't specify what your product does, AI is going to fill in those gaps now. And if your points aren't strong and your competitors are better and they have stronger data points and proof and validation out there, guess who they're going to go with? Okay, so that concludes part one of this video. But does that mean we just stop producing content and submit submarine-like cables across the internet just to get raw text out there without any types of formats? No, we still have to produce something, right? So here's a 10-step sanity check that I use to stay grounded, whether I'm building content like this for Cyber PMM or content development inside a Fortune 100 vendor. These aren't really best practices. They're more like survival tactics, just hardened by personal pain and experience. So let's get into it. First, start with a strategy, or don't start at all, because if you're making content before you've aligned on your ICP, your ideal customer profile, and your messaging, you're setting money on fire. It's not even worth doing it, because your job as a PMM is to translate strategy into action. But that means you need upfront a crystal clear ICP, messaging that's been pressure tested with analysts and users and approved internally, alignment with PM, sales, and leadership on what problem you solve and for who. And this is really your anchor. If this is fuzzy, everything downstream really wobbles. And if someone says, just make something fast, I don't care how it looks, just respond with, sure, yeah, I'll do that. That's the easy part, but I have to know who it's for, because how can I build content if I don't know who I'm building content for? And I need to know what they deeply care about, or else how are you going to create content? Number two, rewire your mental model. Prompt, don't funnel. You're not writing for a stage in the buyer's journey anymore. You're writing for a question, a prompt, a problem. Buyers don't think, oh, I'm in the consideration phase, right? And they don't like move through your buyer's journey in the way that you design it. They think, how do I reduce false positives without increasing my alert backlog, or whatever that question is? And your job is to answer that. But your strategy will have these questions built out so that you can know what answers to put out there in plain language, in public, and in a format that AI can digest. So content in the age of AI isn't just for humans, it's for machines reading on their behalf. Number three, write for Goldfish and for AI. So this is about attention spans that are shrinking. Filtering is getting faster. Your buyers are overloaded. They're under pressure. They're likely scanning ChatGPT for a summary of your content before they even see it firsthand. So what I use is a military term called BLUF, bottom line up front, which just means start with the takeaway, like strip out the filler, the fluff, get your copy down by 30%, and then cut again. And if you want to build trust, say more with less. It's easier for LLMs to parse and quote if your sentences aren't Tolstoy length. So brevity is key. Next, start with questions, not features. Before you create anything, ask, what is my buyer searching for? What are they prompting or complaining about right now? You have to understand their problems and what they're facing. So you can use things like gong calls or transcripts, input from your sales team through surveys, prompt LLMs to simulate your buyer and generate FAQs. You can interview actual customers. That's a radical idea, I know, but actually talking to your customers to find this type of information. And pro tip, segment questions by theme. You can do things like integration, pricing, compliance, implementation time, and then just build a content matrix that answers each one briefly, clearly, and maybe with a visual. Number five, audit before you add. Become the content librarian. Before you spin up one more asset, just ask, do we already have this? I feel like I just created this 6 months ago. And then ask, if it's not current, can I just update this quickly instead of restarting a whole content production cycle and getting all these teams involved? Maybe you can refresh something that exists already. This is where the second M in PMM comes into play. It's all about management. This is the boring side of our role. You have to maintain a living doc or a Notion board or a sheet, something. And if you're lucky enough to have a content marketing team that's doing this, you're in a good place. But at some point, you just have to know what your product has out in the market and what buyers are finding. 6, ask the field, ask analysts, ask the market and your users. Don't create in a vacuum. The best content is used content. Talk to sales. What content do you actually use in deals? SEs, where do you still have to explain things manually out there? CS team, what do customers ask post-sale that we didn't answer pre-sale? Actual users, what helped you pick us? What content did you find compelling? What was missing? So you don't really want to do as much guesswork as we all do. You're sourcing for signals, and that's your cheat code. Number 7, get feedback, not perfection. Don't wait for the perfect version before getting input. Your first draft is meant to be ugly. That's the point. Share early, set a deadline, ask for directional feedback. Does this more or less hit the mark? Don't ask for, is this comma in the right place? You do not need grammar at this stage. In fact, I recommend never asking for grammar input from SMEs, experts, anybody in the business outside of maybe your content marketing team, because a lot of those people don't have time to be checking your grammar. So incorporate input fast, move forward quick, and don't be afraid to version content post-launch. If somebody gives you feedback after you've published, thank you, I'll put that into the next version. And you're not carving this into a stone tablet, you're updating a Google Doc. Remember, it's all written in pencil. Number 8, know the agency versus internal trade-off. Agencies are fast, focused, and outcomes driven. I love working with agencies. If you need a piece turned around at record time, the internal team might not be your best bet because they'll probably have a 3-week queue, and then you have to go political and try to get authorization and escalate and find budget. It's difficult. So the key mindset is that you're not annoying people by asking for speed. You're driving revenue here. So you have to kind of balance why this is important for the business and not just another wild content idea that you have. Number 9, treat creative tickets like prompt engineering. So your creative brief or whatever form that your internal team uses, it's basically like a prompt. So you have to be specific. You have to have a headline with subtext, your tone, audience dynamics, call to action, brand examples that you like, and just don't assume that your designers will get it. You have to make sure that you provide as much context as possible, and you'll avoid 3 rounds of back and forth edits, and it saves everybody a lot of pain in the process. And finally, number 10, plan the publish. So just because you have content in hand doesn't mean you're complete, right? You finish the asset, that's great, but that's 60% of the work here, because now you need your web team to upload it, and they need time. They're similar to creative teams or other teams. They have to have a queue and ticketing system to upload it. They have to have legal sign off sometimes. Demand gen has to distribute it into their campaigns. Sales enablement teams need to include it in their programs. Work backwards from the go live date to make sure that if your go live date is August 7th, that you finish that asset perhaps on July 15th to give yourself that 3 weeks of room to deploy it. Okay, so that's it. Creating content today isn't just writing. It's anticipating buyer questions before they even ask them, and it's building assets that serve 2 audiences at once: the buyer and the AI whispering in their ear. So with this sanity check, you now have a playbook that works in both worlds. I hope this content was useful. If you have any questions or ideas, things that have worked for you, as always, drop it in the comments or find me on LinkedIn and send me a note. All right, see you next time. Well, that does it for this episode of the Cyber PMM podcast. If you found this episode valuable, please subscribe, leave a comment or review, and let's connect on LinkedIn. Be sure to check out cyberpmm.com for more resources. And you can also subscribe to the Cyber PMM newsletter on Substack and LinkedIn to keep up to speed with everything you need to fight digital chaos, cut through the hype, and do more with less. See you next time.